Martin and I'm an aeromodeller and an engineer. Join me on a fascinating journey where I show you some of the techniques used in scale aeromodelling. Hello again modellers. I appreciate it's been a while since I've done a video and the problem is that I've been tied up with building this wing, which I documented, and you've seen how that one went together, and I thought it was all done. So I then started the other wing, the port wing, and got it to more or less the same point. I hadn't fitted the servos and the connecting arms, and nor had I fit the control horns onto the surfaces, but the rest was done. They were hinged and in position and everything else. And it wasn't until I looked at it a little bit more closely and until I tried to replace the piano wire hinges, which I'll show you in a moment, with actually nuts and bolts, which is what the finished article will have, that I realised that the thing wasn't actually going to work, and I've got to do quite a bit of remedial work to put it right. So first of all, this is the wing as I thought it was going to be, and if you look at when I lower the flaps, let's get that pushed right out of the way so that you can see them down fully. If you look from one end, you'll see, especially if you go right to the distance here, you'll see it goes up above the airflow. That's not right. That means the geometry of the hinges is wrong. If you look at the aileron, now there's probably not much I can do about this, but as soon as you lower it a little bit more than that, you can see that the gap has got quite large, and again it should stay a constant radius, but that I can live with that, because for most of the time the aileron is at the central position where the distance is quite good. But this section here was a real problem. Well, not a real problem, it was just something I wasn't very happy with, and I was going to live with it. I wasn't going to worry about it too much. Let's turn it over. So with the wing turned over, you can see how I was doing the hinging while I was building everything and setting everything up. It's a couple of lengths of piano wire going right the way through all the hinges to set the distance, and just to make sure everything seemed to work all right. And that's fine. That's how I've done it before on many models, and it's an okay way of doing it. However, when you take the piano wire out, which just slides out from one end, you'll see that the hinge line has actually pushed the hinge points at an angle. Okay, so get that one out. So if you imagine you put a nut and bolt in there, all of a sudden those are no longer at that angle, it pulls them straight. And to make matters worse, when you operate the surface, it fouls and snags because a fundamental rule has been broken here. These hinge points are in line with the ribs. They should be perpendicular to the hinge line. Okay, so if you look down from the top, sorry the lighting gets a bit bad, these hinges should actually be perpendicular, and they're not. And this one is especially bad for binding because it's all out of alignment, and you can imagine once that piano wire is gone, all of these try to lie in that line, i.e. in the hinge line. So I'm thinking, oh dear, how the heck am I going to get around this? Basically, these hinges are in the wrong angle and they're in the wrong position. So I started with the second wing, the wing that was on the bench at the time, and as you can see here, these are all the bits that got smashed out of the other wing. Some bits actually smashed, really did break, trying to get them apart and take them out. So quite a bit of carnage basically. and let me show you the other wing. So this is the port wing. This is the second wing I was building, and you will see that instead of having an assembly like this set into this root rib, there's now an angle section of aluminium, and it's bent at, well, it's not bent, it's angle section, so it is at 90 degrees to those spars, which means my hinge lines are perpendicular to the spar line, or my hinge lines are actually in line with the spars, which is how they should be. So now, if you remember the other one, when we deflected the flap down, we got this horrible great bulge behind the shroud. Now we get nothing untoward at all. The gap stays the same, and it's staying below the surface of the shroud. Let me just disconnect. The aileron's clamped to the flap. So now you can see that pretty much through, well, if you go too far you go outside the bounds of the surface, but until 30 degrees, which is the maximum, the gap is lovely, all the way to up. Okay, and obviously there's nothing binding and nothing rubbing, and because all the angles of all the hinge points are now perpendicular to the spar, i.e. in the right angles, there's nothing binding, there's nothing rubbing, it's perfect. If we come to the aileron, I've had to do the same. You can possibly just see in there, again, another 90-degree angle section. You'll see it in a minute from the other side. Let's take that clip off. And you can see how free it all is now. No binding whatsoever. So no rubbing, nothing. It's all lovely. Let's flip it over and I'll show you what the hinges look like. So on the other side, you can see that instead of there being a piano wire running right through, there are little fibre plates, and they're actually lengths like that of glass fibre board that I've attached to both sides and just tacked them in place while I get the angles and the distances right, because the distance back to the hinge line and the height is all critical to get the shape to work right. Now ignore the middle one because I've not done the middle one, I haven't removed the old one yet. But then in here you should be able to see, if I lift the flap, you should be able to see the angle plate, and the upper hole is for the flap, and then the lower hole is for the aileron. See, the angles and the geometry is different between the two surfaces. It's not one continuous line as it's been designed. It's been designed like that for simplicity, I can understand that. And there's the root rib again, or the root hinge. And as you can see, it all functions nicely. I've still got some gaping great holes to fill in and to repair from all that carnage. The centre points are fairly straightforward to do on both sides, so I can do those later once I've got all this sorted out. But as you can see, that's taken 2 days of ripping apart what I thought was nearly finished to make this, and this is not quite, you know, in a finished state. It's still work in progress, but it's very close. It's going to work. Just need to tidy it up. I'm waiting for some countersunk screws to sort all this out. I've also got some thread locked nylock nuts to go on here, so I can shorten the bolts, use nylocks and countersink the other side, so that these bolts will become a lot less intrusive. But there we go. I thought I'd just give you an update and explain to you why there's been such a big gap between the last video and the next video, because this is hardly a real video. But that's where we're at. We're trying to sort the two wings out. Once we get these done, we're into exciting territory, such as making a cowl master plug to make a fiberglass cowl. We've also got to make a plug for the canopy, and then we'll be forming that. I'm still not completely decided whether to do an entire canopy in one piece or whether to just vac form the various sections that I need rather than all of it, because all of it will probably mean sending it away to be vac formed by somebody else. My vac forming machine is strictly A4, and the size of the canopy I'll have to pull for this is going to be much bigger. But if the only curved sections are the bubble windows at the back, which I could make separately, and the front windscreen, which has a compound curve at the top, those are the only two that I'd have to vac form, and maybe an area at the top at the back that is actually the canopy framework that also has a double curve in it, but I could do that in various ways. So anyway, there you go. That's where we are at the moment. So please click like and subscribe, and we'll see if we can do another video soon. Bye for now.